local AI here at the India AI Summit. I think this connects very well. The topic of local AI connects very well to some other conversations that we have been having already, including a panel we had yesterday on AI readiness and open data, and as well as lots of conversations continuing to happen tomorrow and through the rest of the week. So just before we get started, a quick opening remark from myself, and then I'll pass it on to some official welcome remarks, and then we'll get into a panel discussion. But of course, across the world today, artificial intelligence is really being presented as a powerful tool, and a really powerful tool for development especially. But one question that keeps coming back to us at Paris 21 is AI for whom and built by whom? In many countries, especially across the global south, data systems are already under immense pressure. Statistical offices are being asked to do more, do these things faster, but also with fewer resources. I think the mic is still on, yes, but also with fewer resources, while still responding to increasingly complex policy challenges. And in that context, AI can offer a lot of solutions, but it can also widen already existing gaps. So this session and this conversation we are convening here today starts with a simple idea, in that AI only becomes truly impactful when it's grounded in local realities. That means local data ecosystems, local languages, local institutions, and most importantly, local people. For official statistics, this matters deeply. Statistics are not just numbers. They are public infrastructure. They shape how governments see society, how policies are designed, and how communities are recognized, or also overlooked. If AI is going to be part of this increasingly new and complex infrastructure, it needs to be inclusive by design, trusted by institutions, and useful for real decision-making. India offers a particularly interesting and powerful context for this conversation. The scale, diversity, and leadership in the whole conversation around digital public infrastructure raises questions that resonate far beyond national borders. Questions like, how do we build these AI systems that work across languages and communities? And how do we ensure that innovation strengthens, not replaces, public accountability? Today's panel, we have people coming from government, we have voices from technology, civil society, and international organizations. And together we'll explore what local AI looks like in practice, what has worked, and also what hasn't. Our aim is not to showcase the technology for its own sake, but to tell a grounded story. And to start us off on that story today, I'd like to invite my colleague from Civic Data Lab, Shuchita Rawal, to offer some more proper opening remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mercedes, and good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of Civic Data Lab and Paris 21, I extend a very warm welcome to our distinguished guests, partners, friends, and colleagues. I am Shuchita Rawal. I lead public finance and gender initiatives at Civic Data Lab. At Civic Data Lab, we are on a mission to enable data change makers to leverage data and AI for conquering some of the most pressing humanitarian problems, specifically focusing on vulnerable communities. It is an honor to be part of India AI Impact Summit, the first ever global AI summit to be hosted in Global South. Our session today focuses or revolves around 4 important keywords, as I see it. It is localization, inclusivity, data, and AI. To begin with, let's start with inclusive data systems. We all know and we all will agree that data fuels AI. And AI is actually representing what kind of data we are feeding into it. So it becomes very important that the AI starts from the ground. But sadly, most of the time, the foundation of data systems exclude the very communities for which they are being created or for which they are being made to serve. But have you ever wondered why? Mainly because these are being designed in the boardrooms, these are coded in the tech hubs, and we still are following top-down approach. And after doing all this, we always kept wondering why AI or why data systems are not inclusive, why they are not able to, or they misunderstand our local or regional languages, and why they still perpetuate biases. I think it's a time we need to rethink, and we must agree that inclusivity should not be an afterthought, but it should be an integral part of our design. And And these communities for which it is being created, they should not just be a mere representatives, but also co-creators in the process. And co-creating solutions is only the way forward, as we see it. And one powerful example that I would like to share here is Bhashini, a Government of India's initiative, a multilingual AI platform that actually supports voice-to-text and translation in most of the Indian languages. And we see that this is what starting from ground means. Basically touching the point which is very close to everyone's heart, which is language. If people are able to communicate, able to interact with the services in the language that they understand, they definitely are empowered. At least I feel empowered. So I think, and at Civic Data Lab, we are very proud to be part of this initiative and helping in supporting and strengthening it further. Another important aspect that I have already shared beforehand, which is like co-creating solutions, I would just like to talk a bit more about it. We all know that data, given the critical and extensive nature of data, it is not one man's job. We all need to get together, we all need to collaborate, partner, come together on a common platform where we start sharing data sets, use cases, insights, and we all become partners or co-creators. And this is what has been in our overall, like I would say that this is the overall ambition in whatever work we are doing at Civic Data Lab. We have been forming and strengthening data and AI collaboratives across all streams of our work, whether it is gender and inclusion, whether it is climate and disaster risk reduction, climate and health, and so forth. And we would be happy to have all of you be part of our journey, and happy to share more about this and discuss more about this after the session or maybe later on. Finally, I would just like to end up by throwing few words which have been consistently came across to us in our Civic Sabha 2.0, which Civic Data Lab has convened last week. Some of these words are responsible AI, inclusive data systems, ethical AI, collaboration, localized solutions, AI skilling, participation, accessibility, safe and trusted AI, and data and AI collaboratives. And I'm sure in today's session as well, we are going to delve deep into these topics and see how we can all meaningfully engage with this and come out with a common idea. We will explore together what starting on the ground actually means in practice. With all these distinguished panelists with us, we would like to hear from their experience and look at some of the examples where local AI is actually empowering communities, where we are falling short, what is the way forward, what we see as potential benefits, challenges, and gaps. I look forward to our conversation and to concrete ideas, partnerships, and innovations that will emerge out of it. Together, we have a unique opportunity to ensure that data and AI drive inclusive development and we leave no one behind. With this, let's dive into the session, and I now hand over back to Mercedes to take forward the conversation. Thank you so much, and thanks again for joining us here.
Thank you so much, Shuchita. That was wonderful, and a really good way to start off this conversation, like you mentioned. I think the points you hit on inclusion and inclusivity in the way that we design is incredibly important. So I look forward to hearing about our speakers on that. But before I do pass it over to our speakers, I do want to introduce them, because I know you can see, well, you were able to see their pictures and their names on the screen, but not much more than that. So let me tell you about how great these people are. Directly to my left, we have Johannes Jutting. Johannes is the executive head. Yes, that is you. Wonderful. Johannes is executive head of Paris 21, so my close colleague. Again, Paris 21 is the global partnership that is hosted by the OECD, but we are a separate entity in what we do, and we have our own mandate, which is really on supporting national statistical systems around the world, particularly in the global south. Johannes is a development economist by training and also a former member of the UN Secretary General's expert group on the data revolution. He's long worked at the intersection of statistics, policy, and inclusive development. Directly next to him, we have Dr. Saurabh Garg. Mr. Garg is the Secretary of India's Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, and he oversees one of the world's largest national statistical systems. An Indian Administrative Security Service officer, my apologies, he has held senior leadership roles across digital public infrastructure, social policy, finance, and brings extensive experience in technology-enabled public service delivery. Next, we have Gaurav Godwani, who is the co-founder and executive director of Civic Data Lab, a research lab advancing data and responsible AI for public good across India and the Asia-Pacific region. With over a decade of experience deploying data innovations in areas such as climate resilience, public finance, and health, he works to strengthen civic and institutional data ecosystems. And finally, at the end of our line here, we have Sachi Bala, who's the deputy director at the Gates Foundation, where she leads work in India on gender equality with a focus on women's economic empowerment and leadership. With experience spanning policy partnerships, public health, and equitable development, she brings a strong emphasis on evidence-driven and intersectional approaches to social impact. Please join me in applauding our fantastic lineup here today. So let's get started. And I'll like to hear from you, Johannes, first, to maybe set the problem statement a little bit for us. Because when we talk about local AI, it can mean a lot of different things. But what problem are we actually trying to solve when we talk about global or generic AI solutions failing to address different things in official statistics and public decision making?
Thank you very much, Mercedes. Good afternoon, everybody. Good to see you here. If I may, Mercedes, I wouldn't put this maybe not too much into a global versus local conversation. I think the global conversation that we have is very important. We discussed many things related to global AI and the problems and the challenges. I think it's now high time to discuss local, but to see the benefits of this conversation, of seeing what can local AI do. And here I have to say, I have really to congratulate the Indian government, in particular also your ministry, to put the question of welfare and to push the question of happiness. This is, if you run around the science, you see AI for improving welfare and happiness. This is the focus of the third summit. The other two summits were in the UK and in France, important summits, but this is the first global summit, as has been said, that is in the South and focuses specifically on issues related to poverty, to welfare. So I think the first point I wanted to drive home is it's really something that we need to take on now very seriously, of how local AI and data system can improve well-being. And if I may, can I speak please again about the SDGs? Have we forgotten about the SDGs? No, we shouldn't. I mean, we still have the mandate to talk about the Sustainable Development Goals and Agenda 2030, leave no one behind. We have seen some developments in the international arena, but let's please have the focus on the SDGs. We still have a few years to go to achieve something. So the first point I really wanted to drive home is the contribution of local AI system and local data system to improve well-being of all people, specifically also in rural areas and who are living a little bit behind. Second point I wanted to say, what are the key levers? How this sort of situation, how can we discuss this? The first is access, the access question. And as you know, I mean, with many of the data systems and data conversation we had, yesterday we had a conversation about AI readiness, getting the system ready and the data to be used for AI, AI for data, data for AI. And I think that's something we really should see. Are we coming into, as Stefan Verhulst, professor in New York says, are we coming into a data winter because some of the access will be closed, or will we be able to unlock data? I think this is a very important key lever to ensure that we can access data that helps people and that helps a sort of local AI system to really address problems that matter for local people. So access is very important. The second point, capacity development. This is Paris 21. We are a capacity development institution. We train and would love. One thing that I haven't seen, I'm picking this out. I'm a trained development economist, but in reality, I'm an agricultural economist by training. And what always struck me in agriculture was the role of small farmer organizations. Small farmer organizations to help farmers to understand their world and sort of to be helped to give them the fertilizer, the pesticides, the education. I haven't seen yet the small farmer organization helping them with the AI systems and helping them to relate to those sort of using mobile phones to help them. I think that's something maybe we can look into further. So capacity development, through whom? Training is the second point. Access, capacity development. And last but not least, it comes all over again and again, is trust. Is trust. If the farmer, let's stay to the farmer example, doesn't trust in terms of the thing that he gets from his wonderful mobile phone, tell him he has to plant now. If he doesn't trust this because he doesn't believe in the data and whatnot, then we have an issue. So the trust will be key. Let me come to the last point, is the role of national statistical offices. I think the national statistical offices all over the world, but particularly in this country, can play a tremendous role in ensuring that local AI data system can support the fight against poverty and improve well-being. It can so do by setting standards, by helping with the quality control of the data, and by also something which has come up very recently is to talk to different stakeholder groups. We often think about unlocking data from the private sector. That's a big debate. We talk about public, sort of all the surveys, yes, but we also have citizen-generated data. Many citizen-generated, many NGOs, and can we sort of integrate that data after having it quality controlled into sort of local AI systems that can really, again, help supporting the welfare of poor people. So in a nutshell, this is an important conversation that we need to have. We are just at the beginning, and now I'm curious to hear from my Indian colleagues what they say more precisely on the Indian situation. Thank you.
Thanks, Johannes. I think that's a really insightful way to look at this. Maybe, yeah, I agree. It's not necessarily a problem, but the challenge that we have at hand here. A lot of what you touched on here is really the importance of grounding AI in local realities. So I'm curious to hear from the government perspective, Dr. Garg, if you could tell us a little bit more from that perspective, because India really is cited quite often as a leader, very rightly so, I think, in this, especially for digital public infrastructure. But what type of institutional or governance choices would you say have been most critical in ensuring that AI-enabled data systems remain inclusive, trusted, and fit for public use?
Thank you. Pleasure to be here. And also a pleasure to talk about inclusive AI data systems, because that's really at the core of when we talk of the overall objective of AI for welfare and AI for all. In fact, one of the 7 working groups of this AI summit is on democratizing AI resources. I'm associated with that group. I co-chair it along with Egypt and Nigeria, and in Egypt and Kenya. And we are looking at this issue, and the fact remains that a lot of AI resources, whether you look at compute, you look at models, you look at data systems, you look at talent, they're not evenly distributed. And that's an area that we've deliberated in the working group also to look at what needs to be done. And this is all the more important because AI is now moving from experimentation to real public deployment. And we are no longer at an experimentation level. And some of the things that we've been discussing, whether in the working group or outside, is how data and AI ecosystems need to be treated perhaps as a data public infrastructure. Data in the sense, a lot of data is generated, as you mentioned, by the statistical offices, by censuses, surveys, but there's a lot of data which gets generated within governments and outside governments. And at least we need to be able to identify the data sets which can be put out in the public ecosystem, which can be used for AI development. And data is the raw material for AI. And if credible and standardized data is available, that will ensure that the AI models work in a manner where no one is left behind, which is also the goal of the SDGs. Towards data governance, what is also required is a standards-based system. And that is something that we are working intimately in the government, looking at how to ensure that the metadata is uniform, that classification and standards are followed, that interoperability is maintained, that data is machine readable so that it becomes accessible. And issues of access are critical, whether it's for compute or for models. And that's the reason, what are the different mechanisms. There's talk of the edge resources, edge compute. There's talk of small domain models. And I suppose a host of these would really help to ensure democratize AI access and ensure that AI remains inclusive. The other aspects are in terms of how we can mold AI to ensure that access remains inclusive. And what I'm talking of in terms of ensuring that semantic search can be made much more multilingual. Because increasingly, I think that's one thing which AI ecosystems allows to ensure that voice becomes a means of being able to search and identify. And voice, which is language neutral, which is for which you don't need to be a literate and you don't need to have a single language access. I think multilingual access and voice access is something which AI in a way enables. So AI we don't need to look at AI as always restricting access, but I think this aspect of AI is something which will only enable greater inclusiveness and ensure that people are able to access high quality information, high quality resources because of the inherent benefits of AI. And last but not the least is also in terms of strengthening safeguards. I think that's been alluded to, and that's what when we talk of AI by design, being able to ensure that the data is one takes care of safety concerns and concerns of ethical issues around it. So what would be the guardrails for that? I think that needs to be built in at the design stage itself. But that in itself should not prevent us from leveraging AI much more effectively, I think. Very often if I don't want to use that word, but for lack of the doomsayers might talk about the harms of AI, but I think we need to be cognizant of the benefits also, while ensuring that we have sufficient safeguards built in at the design stage. So I'll stop here, but just want to add, since we are talking in a forum which is a partnership for statistics, and I'm part of the statistics office in India, that is something that we are working with across ministries, across states, to ensure that the data becomes accessible and that data is standardized. And because if our data ecosystem is correct, that's really the foundation. And that foundation will ensure that AI becomes so much really AI for all and AI inclusive in all its sense. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Secretary Garg. That's really helpful, and especially the points you're hitting on about inclusion. I think you've hit it right on the nail there. But I do think it's one thing to design these inclusive systems, and then it's a real other thing to actually feel their impact. So that's why I think maybe now we turn it over to Gaurav from Civic Data Lab to go in a little bit more on that angle. If you can tell us a little bit about how you've seen local AI actually empower communities, or maybe from the civil society actor perspective as well, in a way that you can now engage with data in new ways.
Thanks, Mercedes, for having me here, and thanks to Paris 21 for co-organizing this session with us. So since we are in the late afternoon session, with your permission, Mercedes, can I do a bit of a poll just to see the energy in the room?
Yes, I love the
right?
interaction.
So raise your hand if you have used AI application, be it your traditional GPTs and LLMs, in not English and Hindi. Not English and Hindi. Great. Continue to keep your hand up if you feel everyone in your family, especially your elderlies, can use that effectively. Continue to keep your hand up if you can find local information about your neighborhood, for example, SDG goals. I'm also wearing the SDG pin, as we were reminded by Johannes that SDG indicators we can get in the local language for your local area through those AI models. So yeah, very few hands left. So that's the problem which we are trying to solve. Like if we have to make local data work for local population, for the local development goals, we don't have the ecosystem ready yet. And it has three major areas which we have to improve upon. Number one is co-creation. Some of the times these models are created, as my colleague was explaining, in research labs, but not tested or not actually involved from the very beginning with the local communities. So at Civic Data Lab, we keep saying when we talk about the AI lifecycle, unfortunately, the local audience comes at the tail end of it when we start testing those solutions. Not from the very beginning, they get seat on the table to have opportunity to say their concerns, say what their problems are, what are the kind of opportunities they want to achieve with help of these local applications. So ensuring there is enough representation in the room when we are conceptualizing these AI models is critical. And then we involve them in throughout the AI lifecycle, find incentives for them to be motivated throughout the AI lifecycle with you. When you are conceptualizing, when you are bringing in the data sets, when you are early testing the models, when you are actually scaling up the models and ensuring it's ready for the population scale, find incentives that they are involved throughout the AI lifecycle. Second one is evaluation. We understand, and Johannes briefly touched upon it, that there is global AI ecosystem and there local AI ecosystem, and a lot is happening in the global AI ecosystem. We can see across the Bharat Mandapam, a lot of conversation is dominated by that. How do we ensure that there is a bridge between global AI and local AI? We don't want them to be in the locks with each other. We want them to work with each other. And that's where the participatory AI evaluation framework can help us enable that. So a lot of LLMs, a lot of AI models would be developed in other countries and would be brought into other geographies. That's going to happen. That's the reality we are working with. But we need participatory AI evaluation where local experts, local domain experts, local culture experts know what are the biases in some of these models, flag them well in advance before they are raised at population scale, and help them curb all of this. And again, we find incentives for these experts, local domain experts, local culture experts, to serve us in that journey. That's the second aspect. Third is the skilling. Local AI is as good as the local skilling ecosystem who is going to get benefit of it. We understand that still certain section of communities struggle to engage in the digitization journey, struggle to engage with the AI journey as well. How do we give enough opportunity of skilling to them so that they feel they have a seat on the table, they can participate with this information, be it your data sets, be it your AI models? How do we find that space for them to skill and feel comfortable that they would have a secure job in the future as well? So that's what I would feel if you have to unbundle local AI, these three elements: co-creation, participatory AI evaluation, and AI skilling need to be unlocked parallelly to make it happen.
Thank you very much, Gaurav. I hear what you're saying, especially on the scaling aspect of it as well, and that's what's really key here. And so maybe if we want to hammer in a little bit more on that, because I think it's important that we talk about initiatives that go beyond pilots and really looking at that impact and that success as well. But turning over to you, Sachi, because I know you have a lot of experience both within the Gates Foundation and in other areas as well, working across different countries and institutions. But from your perspective at the Gates Foundation now, what is one recommendation that you would give to governments who are really interested and want to invest in AI for data systems, especially keeping in mind something that actually strengthens inclusion in public decision making?
Thank you, Mercedes, and thank you to the organizers. This is a great session. I also feel like so much has already been said. You know, I think I was just making note of some of the words everyone has said around trust, co-creation, and I think what Gaurav said about skills is also something that sort of was reflected across the panel. If I had to say one recommendation, and I'm just going to give you the headline, but I want to dig deeper into some other themes, I think we need to treat AI as an institutional capability and really look at inclusion in design and in the co-creation aspect at the outset, rather than as a secondary or a tertiary area of focus. And I think something that we must keep reminding ourselves is that AI is not a standalone tool. Having dashboards and doing pilots is exciting, and it is something that could get people interested in focusing on the value that you can get out of AI. But it really sort of how well we are able to utilize AI and really make it work for people is by looking at whether it can be embedded in existing trusted institutions with trusted data and aligned with statistical standards, all things that Mr. Garg said, but also looking at what is the use of that data and what is the use of that AI functionality at different levels. And that's going to look different. At the national level, it'll look different, and at a community level, it'll look different. It will look different if you have a shared device or if you have your own individual device. So thinking about the usability, I think, is something that also needs to come in right at the outset. I can dig a little deeper there, but I wanted to sort of, go back to what Johannes said about the lack of application of AI in agriculture and at the last mile in some form. And some work that we've been doing with the Government of India, with the National Rural Livelihoods Mission, is really making sure how can we tap into AI capabilities that exist, but make sure that we are working with trusted frontline workers. So women who are from the community, women frontline workers who actually can be skilled and be provided with the tools which allow them to access data, access AI analysis, and share that with women farmers. And because it's the combination of being skilled on a technical area, whether that is on livestock management or on specific aspects of agriculture and cropping, and it's coming from a trusted person who is also equipped with the right information and AI-powered tools, I think that's really, in a sense, such a great use case of what we can do to make sure that AI is actually local and is being used by the community, and actually then strengthening what the data systems are and how AI can actually continue getting better at responding to the needs of the community.
Thank you. I like the way you've put that kind of two-way street into perspective as well. The importance of having that trust go two ways and have the importance of understanding and the skills as well that come along with that, as well as the access. So all very important points. We've got just less than 15 minutes left in this session, and I do want to open up for Q&A. But before I do that, so it gives everyone a chance to think of a question, a short and concise question, so that we can take as many as possible. I want to ask one question to our speakers, maybe a little bit provocative, a little bit pushing, really on that local-global nexus, which we all see maybe in different ways. But can we ever really have truly local AI in a world where foundational models and platforms are really controlled by these big global actors? So you don't have to answer that question, but a little seed to think about. And now, if anyone has questions from the floor, I will come pass the mic to you. Fast hands. I see a fast hand there. If you can introduce yourself as well, please.
Thank you, panel. I'm Anubhuti, and I'm from Nalanda University. My question is from Ma'am Yu and Gaurav sir. If you could answer how the government launched yesterday only Bharat Vistar program, and we see how it is integrating, and it will be useful for the farmers to look up to the schemes and everything. How do we make sure at this level, when we are implementing this DPI structure on the local level, how do we make sure that not to criticize, but I come from Rajgir, where my university is based. We don't have stable internet connections in such areas. How do we make sure that the people are actually able to access such database and they are able to reap benefit out of it? So how do we make sure of that? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's see if there's some other questions. Maybe we can bundle some questions here.
Hello, all of you. My name is Vineet Prakash, and I've recently started an organization, Quantum Nebula. It's a startup. So basically, the organization intention is to bring the combination of the AI and AI offerings, and so that we can bring up the processings and the another pattern on the quantum side, because I saw the name quantum, so I came here. So the question is, do you think that the quantum and the AI can bring the right set of use cases across the healthcares and the other verticals as well? Do you think so? Based on your experience, I've done a couple of research around, and I have a patent in quantum recently on the authenticity. But I would like to hear from the jury as well. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Maybe is there one more question? Yes, I'll see the hand right here, and then we'll leave it up to the speakers to answer whichever.
Hi, I'm Himali. I'm a data scientist. So my question is, since this session started with talking about involvement of community, so currently, as I understand, there's a lack of knowledge among digital users on how their data is collected and how it is used. Even though the DPDP Act is there, but the legitimacy of it in the society is not yet there. Like, people are not aware of how much data the companies actually have on them, and what probably company has more data on a person than the person actually understands. So how do we bridge this gap through community participation? I want to understand that.
Very interesting. Thank you for that. I think the community participation aspect is incredibly important for us to talk about continuing so. Speakers, over to you. Feel free to take the mic and jump in on any of those.
So starting for the first one on connectivity and internet problems in rural areas, I think one must realize that now we are entered a situation that, number one, mobile connectivity is near universal. It's more than 98 or 99% in terms of availability of mobile connection. Internet connection, because of the Bharat Digital Project, ensuring that optic fiber connectivity is there to every panchayat, that also is near universal. And a lot of these activities, whether it's Bharat Vistar, there was another one, Maha Vistar, which was already in operation. Bharat Vistar was launched, if I'm not mistaken, yesterday by the Honorable Prime Minister. So a lot of them are also don't necessarily require a smartphone. Many of those activities are also available on a feature phone. So I think because of ubiquity of the mobile phone, access is something which perhaps is not so much of a problem, and maybe a decade or two back it was. But that's what I would just like to flag that and leave it at that. On the quantum and AI, I think quantum would have a lot more impact on the cyber security. Obviously, you have quantum computers and you will have compute so much more faster, but that's still something in the future. But in terms of quantum infecting cyber security, is more threats which are real. And I think at the same time, there are enough work being done to ensure that quantum can also be used more effectively for good, rather than looking at it only at what could be the negative aspects of that. And the third point was on data. I think data privacy is something which is topmost in terms of concerns that there are at an individual level. But I can say that each of the data sets that are collected, especially by the government, have very clear protocols behind them. I think what you are alluding to is the data that is captured by a lot of the, for example, the social media aspects, etc. And I think those are things which are work in progress, if I can put it that way. But the first is obviously awareness has to be at an individual level, and then comes the second aspects on what needs to be done to ensure that in case there is a violation. And I think the DPDP Act at least has a framework around it, and we can of course discuss how it will get implemented in future, but I'll stop here.
Thank you very much, Secretary. Over to you, Sachi.
I'll just build on Sir's point from around data connectivity. And also add that, I think when we are building solutions in India, and if we are thinking about what happens at the last mile, we're making sure that these solutions are not dependent on connectivity at 100% of the time. So I'll just reference like maybe a couple of tools that frontline workers are using, and that could be in the health space, it could be in the agriculture space, it could be in education. The way that these tools are currently being designed is that you have offline capabilities. You are able to utilize them when you are even in a remote area, and then once you have access to internet, strong internet again, or data capabilities, you are able to actually upload the data online onto the cloud. I think it's really important that when we design, we make sure that we are looking at the last user. It's not for the average user who is going to be sitting in a city with 100% connectivity at all times. And I think it's really amazing to see that actually the government of India has made that effort because of this idea around democratizing and making sure that we are actually getting the best capabilities at the last mile. So I think the way we are looking at tools, at the design and the usability of tools today, we recognize that there will be these few instances, they may be near universal connectivity, but there might be some instances where data is weak, or we are not using smartphones, etc. But the way that applications are being designed and the skilling that is being provided to the frontline workers make sure that that doesn't mean they are left out of that of this movement. And I think that's a really strong start. Of course, as connectivity improves and as skills improve, this is something that's just going to get stronger and stronger.
If I can just add in 30 seconds to what Saurabhji and Sachi mentioned. Two things which, and actually in both the use cases of connectivity as well as on data security, data privacy perspective, there is a very critical role of civil society organizations to take this knowledge, localize it, contextualize it for the citizens they are serving. One body alone can't ensure a digital application or an AI application is reaching the last mile. There's a series of intermediaries which we have to activate. So local civil society and local academic institutions play a vital role here. We just need to find more incentives to support them. And second is, again, we have to make sure that information is localized. There is a need for multilingual aspect to be strengthened, and the project Bhashini is trying to do that. How do we further see a larger landscape there where voice data could also be ensured, because a lot of languages are not having scripts. So how do we ensure that some of the DPDP Act laws are explained in voice for the local languages, for local dialects, is going to be a game changer, which we would see in upcoming years.
Can I just add something to this conversation, and also to bring it back to the international level, because I think the Indian example is super interesting for all over the world. I mean, we at Paris 21 work a lot in Africa. And to be very honest, one point that I think we are not discussing eventually enough is supply versus demand. For me, this is often a very much supply-driven. We have AI, we throw it at the people, and then see if demand is coming. Hey, we have to see what is the real, can we turn latent demand? Can we make farmers, citizens demand those services? So if we do this, what are people concerned about living in rural areas, living in cities, whatnot? They are first and foremost concerned about public services. Public service meaning healthcare. If I go to a hospital, do I pay under the table payment? It says officially it's free for all. No, but often you have to pay under the table. Is the teacher showing up in school? Is there quality education? Is there security? Is there sewage? Those things matter for people. So how can we turn this latent demand into something? I think that their civil society can help, but also a for-profit sector. And I think we should also, and that's something maybe for the researchers here we could think about a bit more, is about what are the lessons learned from the ICT revolution. 25 years ago, 30 years ago, I was working for a research institute in Bonn in Germany. And we started research about ICT, information communication technology. Is it good or bad for poor people? I mean, not in the sense of, bad for poor people meaning, does it benefit the poor? Have mobile phones benefit the poor more proportionally? I would say definitely yes. What were the success reasons for this? I mean, many of the things that then also a private sector has come up with. Now look at Kenya. You have insurance payments via mobile phones. It's even more advanced than in rich countries. So can we get those things in the AI world as well, and what is needed? So I think we have to focus also a little bit more on the demand, make it effective.
Thank you very much. I think those were all really interesting ways to answer these different questions we've had. All very different questions as well, covering different areas of this debate here. I know we had that alarm clock that went off and all woke us up a little bit, and is definitely our cue to wrap up here. So just in wrapping up, I think what we've come to hear a lot from all of our speakers is really this importance of inclusion. I don't think that's news to anyone, but I think the angles that you've all presented here and coming from the different perspectives has really shaped how I understand inclusion in this space of AI and where the different stakeholders and different groups all play a key role, as well as the stakeholders that we have in the room, citizens, people coming from different types of institutions, different countries and backgrounds as well. That is what can really make these systems, these solutions, the strongest. And I think that's also where we can understand the demand. As you're saying, Johannes, it's exactly true. I think a lot of times in tech, the demand is preceded by the supply. So how can we flip that and make sure that these solutions that are being invested in, both in terms of financial resources, but also environmental resources, how can we make sure that they're responding to the demand that's out there rather than just throwing spaghetti at the wall to see if it sticks? So we've got about 10 seconds left. Let's use that time for applause. Thank you all for coming out, and thank you to our speakers.